and welcome to Lovemakers, the podcast where listeners call in with their deepest love questions and get them answered by me, Cora, the lovemaking lady. Just to give you a little background about how this show started, I was actually in the critical care waiting room this Valentine's Day. I got to talking with a wonderful young woman who had managed to get her eyes super glued shut. And we just got into it. We were talking about everything under the sun having to do with love and relationships and trust and betrayal. And at a certain point, I looked up and I realized the entire waiting room was hanging on my every word. I got a lot of questions that night. I mean, from passerby, from orderlies, from staff. And when I was finally discharged a few days later, I realized I have a lot to offer when it comes to making sense of making love. And I'm going to be straight with you, all right? I'm going to be right up front. I don't have any psychological degrees. I'm not a therapist of any nature. I don't have any credentials with which I can back up a single word I say, but I have lived. I've been married 4 times. I've been divorced twice. I have had hundreds, if not thousands, of intimacies with men and with women. I've raised 4 beautiful huskies and 2 kids. I've self-published 17 highly rated romance novels on Amazon.com. So I want to apply my expertise, my mistakes, and my heartbreaks to answering your question. And we're going to start that off with this call right now.
Hi, Cora. This is Helen. I'm calling from Los Angeles. I have a pretty straightforward question that people still don't really seem to have an answer for, which is religion in relationships. I'm an atheist. My boyfriend is an Irish Catholic. He's from the East Coast. We're talking about living together. And you talk about live together, you're going to see a future with this person, probably eventually get married, have kids. I don't believe in God. He does. We have never had this talk. So my question is, how do I go about having that talk? And is it possible for us to find some sort of shared ground on this issue, or is it ultimately a deal breaker? So I'd love to know what you have to say on the matter. Great. Thank you.
Hun, thanks for calling. That is such an amazing question. Thank you for bringing it up. Full transparency, I am a practicing Wiccan. I can testify to the terrifying reality of magic in our day-to-day lives and its presence with us every step we take. Now, my dear husband, Frank, he is a Southern Baptist, okay? And his preacher would tell you that such as me should be tied to a stake and burnt. So, and yet we get along like peanut butter and jelly. Now, my first marriage was actually to a man who shared my beliefs. He was a wizard. He was also the general manager of the Piggly Wigglies that I worked at all through high school. We met in the same coven, and like I said, our beliefs lined up. There was no questioning each other. There was no challenging. There was no critical thought applied to the direction we were going. We pushed each other in dangerous ways. In some positive, yes, we did achieve a level of sex magic that is entirely advanced, but also in some very dark and dangerous ways. I believe at some point we raised a demon whose name I shall not say that will one day come to claim my life. That's something I have to live with. And we also burned down the back room of the Piggly Wigglies, which cost him, 3 months and counting. What I'm trying to say is when you and your partner agree 100%, you can push each other down a path of zealotry from which there may be no return. So embrace the fact that your loved one challenges you, that you may have these metaphysical debates and get a chance to defend what you believe and believe it more for defending it. I mean, yeah, I get into some real screamers with Frank. I'll throw a cat at him if he comes at me too much about my altar in the backyard. As for our kids, we have 2. They are Southern Baptist Wiccans. They know how to praise the Lord and the Lady. They go to youth group dances on Thursdays. They know the real meaning of Halloween. They get to open presents from Santa Claus. Best of both worlds. Now I'll tell you something else, Helen. If I had been a Southern Baptist woman and married Frank and not loved Burn Notice, I honestly don't think we'd be together. Where we find common ground is in the Netflix instant streaming series that we both want to watch. Honestly, in this day and age, I would say it's 90% of a marriage. Am I interested in binging the same series with my partner? Now, Helen, insofar as bringing this up with your sweet little papist, I would just wait until you're midway through a Netflix binge, reach over, take his hand, and say, "Hun, won't it be sweet when our kids tell us what they believe?" And let the conversation flow naturally from there. I think you're going to be just fine, Helen, but do call back. Let us know how it goes, and blessed be. Now, on to our very second call.
Yes. Hello, Miss Cora Cuba. This is Lawrence. I'm calling you with a love problem. Soon after a recent surgery on my nose for not cosmetic but medical reasons. I've had a series of problems involving scent and arousal. So, for instance, the smell of my dog causes a lot of engorgement downstairs, as well as the smell of my dear mother. This is a problem for a number of reasons, not the least of which I can't find a tailor who can make my pants the right size so that I'm not embarrassed whenever this type of engorgement happens when I visit my dear mother every day or see my lovely dog every minute of every day. Unfortunately, the opposite problem has occurred when I'm with my beautiful girlfriend, Lorenzetia. We have a lot of trouble because the engorgement goes away whenever I catch a whiff of her or her perfume, which once sent me mad with lust. So, if you could give me a hint or a tip, I'd be much thankful. I'll take my answer off the air.
Lawrence, you will not be getting your question answered off air. I'm sorry for that, but that is just not the way that Lovemakers works. I understand if maybe you were trying to stay a little more anonymous with this question, but I know exactly who you are. Lawrence Willikers. You are that little guy who comes into my Curves all the time. I don't know how you got a membership to Curves, what loophole you exploited, but I think it's kind of wrong. And I have noticed you sniffing the seats of the stationary bikes, which is very much against the rules of our Curves community. However, it also tells me that this nasal arousal connection existed before any kind of procedure that you had done on your facial planes. So you might want to investigate this more as a mental than physical issue, perhaps with a therapist, perhaps with a family therapist. I'll leave that to your discretion. But Lawrence, while you are wrestling with these deep-seated issues, I know you're going to need to address the here and now, your discomfiture over going out and about with a boner, and I would like to suggest that you look into cloaks. How comfortable do you have any? The first nip of cold in the air, I am on my belly under my bed pulling out my big old winter storage bag of cloaks. I love them. I have a Oakland Raiders cloak. I have a festive fall colors cloak. I have a beautiful piece that is velveteen with a razzle gold trim. It is simply sumptuous. And I would suggest to you that you go down to the Joann's Fabrics that is actually in the same strip mall as our Curves. You find any kind of fabric you want. You can get something like a lycra kind of number that you can work out in whatever you so please, and make yourself some cloaks. You do not need a tailor to make a cloak, Lawrence. If you can draw a circle, you can make a cloak. So I do wish you all the best in coming to grips with whatever it is that links your sexual arousal with the smell of your mother. And in the meantime, in between time, I will look forward to seeing you at the Curves. Although, once again, I shall have to report you if you keep sniffing the you-know-what. Blessed be, Lawrence.
I have a question. I really like this girl, but I don't know how to tell her. And I was hoping you could give me some ideas. I feel it's really uplifting to be able to get that off my chest. I feel a lot lighter, even if you don't tell me. Thanks for having the service. Goodbye.
You are so welcome. The whole reason I started this Lovemakers podcast was to answer questions just like this. You are on the threshold of a bold and sexy era. So, how exactly do you tell this lucky lady that you like her? Well, First off, maybe you never tell her that you like her. What kind of lady is this? If she's kind of like a hot bitch, high on her horse type, you might go 10 years of marriage and never tell her you like her, because the moment you do, she is out the door. She is only waiting for you to hand her the approval that you have been denying her. There is a man called Mystery. He got very much into this back in the Bush years. It is called nagging. It is when you refuse to give a compliment, or you give a compliment that has two faces. It's a double-edged sword kind of thing, where you are like, hey, I had shoes like those until I got my feet fixed. That's the kind of thing that you say where it makes them go, whoa, maybe I'm not as much of a hot bitch as I would like to think that I am. So now, if this is not a extremely high-powered, career-type, supermodel-type woman we're talking about, then pretty words are absolutely your friends, and you should confess in the most beautiful and flowery and expressive way you can. I am talking big romantic gesture in the place she least expects, maybe a workplace. If you are in hospital together, you just turn around and blurt it out before she heads into surgery. I mean something that really sweeps her off her feet. If you find yourself feeling a little shy, you sound a little shy, so I've actually come up with a love confession that is in one of my many self-published books available on Amazon.com. This one is from To Find a Filly. You can take as much or as little as you need. I give you full permissions to plagiarize my self-published work. And without further ado, here it is. Troy leaned against the fence, staring at Jalissa through the golden haze of the autumn sunset. What is it? Jalissa smiled, tossing her long auburn side braid over one shoulder. Why are you staring at me like that? Troy rolled his jaw like he had a sweet in his mouth he couldn't get enough of. I'm staring at you, Troy said, because I'm afraid if I look away, you'll disappear. I'll disappear around the barn to feed some of these horses, if that's what you mean, Jalissa laughed nervously. The race is in 3 days, and if we don't win the cup, to hell with the cup, Troy growled, a low, primal growl in the words, swinging his muscle-bound arm in a defiant gesture that rent open the first 3 buttons of his chambray work shirt. To hell with the whole damn ranch, Jalissa. As long as I have you in my life, they can churn these horses up for glue for all I care. And so saying, he leapt the fence, took her in his arms, cupping one of her bosoms with a cherishing hand, and before Jalissa could protest, their mouths met in a slow, hot kiss. Yeah, you see what I'm saying here, hun? Never underestimate the power of a surprise kiss. It can be much more powerful and significant than any words, especially when it comes out of the blue. So good luck, sweetie. Let me know how it goes. Dive in lips first. This has been such an incredible experience. I have learned so much about love today, simply hearing myself talk about it. I hope you have as well. If you have a love issue you want to discuss, babes, you can call in to 213-973-2157. Leave your question on the answering service and I will get back to you. We will be back next week, same time, same place, to make a little more love. And again, that number 213-973-2157. I am waiting to make love with you. Thank you and blessed be.